Deep Threat Sports. We're back at it again. The playoffs are here. Let's talk about what these playoffs look like because there was a lot of speculation on who's going to make it, who's not going to make it. People saying, some teams were going to be in, and this, of course, there's stuff to talk about, but I feel like it's a very reasonable playoff team that we got here. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about who's playing who, what we think with, in terms of them, bets. We always got to have the bets in there. Colin's our expert on that end. So he's going to talk to you guys to where you should put your money. And then we're just going to talk about what this looks like, the landscape is going to look like who got it easy, who got it hard. Collin, let's talk about it. Start us off here.
Yeah, real quick, just want to welcome everybody back. What an amazing college football season. Hard to believe that we are now talking the playoffs. I mean, I just can't fathom how fast time went by. And we're going to try to kind of go through, week by week. And then if anybody has, requests of what they want us to talk about, we'll do it. I know Bryant made a really good recommendation to us last episode about wanting to go over some bowl games. So I figured maybe this coming Thursday, how we kind of do 2 episodes a week, maybe this Thursday we'll dive into some interesting bowl matchups, talk a little bit about Mizzou's bowl matchup and some intriguing ones as well. But this episode here, we are solely going to talk our playoff reaction to the 12 teams that got in, talk about how we feel about Alabama and Miami being on the outside looking in and SMU staying in. And like Dave said, we're going to go through and make our picks. We're going to give you who we think runs through this playoff bracket, and we're going to talk about who we think got the shaft and who came out smelling like a rose. So real quick, just to go over the 12 teams that got in. Obviously, Oregon coming in as your Big Ten champ with the 1 seed. They get an auto bid for a first-round bye, and they will play their first game on New Year's Day at 4 p.m. in the Rose Bowl. The 2 seed is the SEC champion Georgia Bulldogs. They will play 1-1 in the Sugar Bowl, presented by Allstate. They obviously won the SEC, so they get an auto bid. This next one probably caught some people off guard. I don't think Deep Red Sports Network was caught off guard by this one, but it's Boise State in the 3 seed. They will play on New Year's Eve at 6:30 p.m. in the Fiesta Bowl. The Mountain West Conference champs. Congratulations to Boise State and Ashton Jeanty for getting it done. And then the 4 seed. This wasn't surprising to me once the conference game shook out. I did kind of see this coming. I don't know about you, Bryant and Dave. I felt pretty good that this was going to happen. Arizona State, the Big 12 champs. Congratulations to Kenny Dillingham and Cam Scattaboo. They are going to play on New Year's Day at 12 p.m. on ESPN in the Peach Bowl. Guys, you could have gave me a lot of guesses of who was going to win the Big 12, and this might have been my last answer. So congratulations to the Arizona State Sun Devils for getting to this situation. Now to kind of roll through the rest of the teams real quick. We have Texas at the 5 seed, Penn State at the 6 seed, Notre Dame at the 7 seed, Ohio State 8, Tennessee 9, Indiana 10, SMU 11, and Clemson 12. They won the ACC, so they did get in, but they were the lowest ranked conference champ. So hey, they're not gonna get an auto bid. Clemson Tigers at the 12 seed just sneaking in there because they won and they got in. That's how it works. So real quick, Bryant, Dave, are you guys kind of surprised by some of these teams? Do you think they got the 12 teams right? Do you think Bama should have been in? Do you think Miami should have been in? Do you think any of the seeding should have been a little bit differently? Bryant, go ahead and tell me what you're thinking.
No, I think the committee got this almost exactly correct as far as the teams. There was a lot of talk last night after the games were over about um, why teams would want to play in the conference championships, like SMU, for example. If Alabama got him above SMU, then what's the point of playing in the conference championship? I think they did a good job of not setting that precedent. If they would have done that, then it would have been bad news for future years, in my opinion. Um, Lessening the importance of a conference championship game. So from that standpoint, yes. Now, from a different standpoint, I do think some of these teams that have played well all season. Let me look at the bracket here. Like Arizona State got a pretty good draw. Like Oregon has to play Tennessee and Ohio State. You'd think. I know it's kind of fallen in the seeding, but you think they'd have a little bit easier schedule in this bracket to make it further. It seems like some of these higher ranked teams in the bracket are getting the shaft a little bit. And then
Well,
a
and
team like
this
Texas
kind of
almost
goes
has a
back.
true team like
Go ahead, Bryant.
Texas has a pretty easy path to get to the
Yeah,
semis. I wouldn't say
yes,
easy,
they do.
but easier. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And I was looking at this earlier, and the first thing that came to my mind is how we did an episode probably a month ago now. where we were talking about how we wish it was playoff reseeding. Because then truly Oregon, for dominating the regular season, does get rewarded for being a true 1 seed. Then they would play the lowest seed remaining, rather than, to your point, Bryant, they're going to play the winner of the Tennessee-Ohio State game. And when I look at some of these teams in this playoff bracket, Tennessee and Ohio State could arguably be two of the better teams in this bracket. So, I mean, it makes it really hard for Oregon. You saw Oregon sneak out a narrow margin victory against Ohio State earlier on in the season. Don't get me wrong. I'll be the first here to tell you, I'm looking forward to those kind of games, right? I mean, this is why we did this. So, I mean, I'm not an Oregon fan or an Oregon coach, so do I really care at the end of the day? No, but we talk college football here, and I think it's wrong. So I totally agree with you. And looking at Texas's slate to make it to the Final Four, I mean, they could play a Clemson team. Now, listen, I don't know how many teams that are better than Clemson that Texas has played this season. I guess it really comes down to, you think A&M or Clemson's better, and I think Clemson at times can be a good football team. So maybe Texas does get snuck up on. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel great after watching Texas this last weekend. A lot of things I saw in Quinn Ewers in that football game, I was texting you guys, I was texting some other people. It looks to me like Quinn Ewers doesn't have any velocity on the football. Like I like early on in the game, I was actually watching this game with my dad, and I'm sitting there, and even like on a 8-yard out route, he has no zip on the football getting it out to his guy, and that's why he threw that early interception. Like it doesn't get there in time. It's kind of floated to him, and he bats it up, and it's picked. So not to dive too much into the games, but Texas doesn't impress me right now. So, yes, Brian, I do agree with you, though. If they just had to get through Clemson and Arizona State, I mean, they probably couldn't pick a better draw themselves. So, totally agree with you on this. Dave, what are you thinking?
I was fully prepared for when these playoff bracket came out to be like pissed about something. And truthfully, I do think these are the 12 best teams in the country. Like the 12 teams that deserved the spot got in. Listen, I like Bama. I thought, they were a playoff team, but you can't take the spot away from any of these teams is what it comes down to. You can't take the spot away from any of these teams. So you're out. You really got to control your own destiny. The Miami, same thing. They were supposed to win the ACC, I think they were number one team in the country at one point. So, like, to go from that to you're out of the playoffs, but, I think it went to show, we talked early in the season where I believe they played Virginia Tech and they should have lost that game. And they kind of had a couple of close ones throughout the year. And then, on the long ball, they just down the stretch, they just couldn't keep it together. I mean, when you're healthy, everything's fine. But, like, once you're not healthy, you just got to make changes throughout the team. That's where you really show, like, what kind of team you're made of. Because even for
Well,
me,
they did it to themselves. They did it to themselves, right?
oh, absolutely.
And
Same with
Mario,
Alabama.
same with Alabama. You're exactly right. And Mario Cristobal did it to them. I mean, so yeah, and I everybody knows that I've campaigned for Miami to make the playoffs all along, just because I think to this I will still say this right now that it's over and I know they're not in. I still believe they have the best quarterback in the country, and I still believe they have the best offense in the country. Like I
Yeah.
stand firm on that. I will not venture away from that, and that's just very upsetting to me that coaching is why I feel like we're not talking about them. I feel like they should 100% be one of the first four to get a bye. Not with their record now, obviously, but with the talent on paper coming into this and midway through the season, I was so adamant they were going to be one of the teams that got a first round bye. I really was. And I still feel like they should have. If they just had a little bit better coaching. That's all they needed to pull that off. So I don't know. Do either one of you really want to make a case for Alabama? Because I don't, and I don't want to make a case for Miami either.
I
I was
don't
just kind
either.
of checking in with you guys on what you guys thought. I do agree these are the right 12 teams.
I think the only argument you have, I think other than Indiana and SMU, the other teams are locked in, just because A, they either won their conference or they're way better than Alabama and Miami on paper. Indiana only has one loss. Yeah, their strength of record and strength of schedule isn't the greatest, but 11-1, the Big Ten is going to get you in this game every year. And then SMU, I think that was the true argument. But like I mentioned earlier, the committee does not want to set a precedence of a team that loses a conference title game, especially the way they did. Coming back all the way and almost pulling it out, losing on a game-winning field goal. and then kicking them out of the bracket would have been just a bad move and the wrong move for the sport in general, right now and
Yes.
into the future. So I don't think there's an argument. I think you could say Alabama may be a better team than SMU, and if they played them right now, they probably be favored, honestly. But
It depends which Bama team shows up, though, right? I mean,
absolutely. But
there's so many different recipes of an Alabama football team that Brian, I want to agree with you. I want to tell myself that if I watched SMU Alabama kick off tonight at 8 o'clock, that Bama would beat them by 14. But
mhm.
if the Bama that played Oklahoma shows up, SMU beats them 34-7. So I mean, it's hard.
And it
I
goes
think
down to
SMU. Go ahead, buddy.
it goes down to, I mean, SMU played the season and got themselves in position to
Yeah.
determine their own fate, not a committee determine their fate. And so I think that shows for future seasons that if you wanted to get into this thing, you either A, need to survive and not lose to teams you should beat, like Oklahoma and like Alabama losing to Oklahoma and Vandy. So SMU determined their fate, even though they lost the game last night. Um, they're not going to kick out a conference champion loss game, it appears like. So
So
The
let me
conference championship games make way too much money for them to not put a team deserving into the playoffs and then lose the credibility of a conference championship game. Like
mhm.
they get a lot of their TV money and stuff like that from the conference championship games. So they have to make sure that they do this the correct way. And I think they did. I think SMU is very, very deserving. And Dave, it looks like you had a question. So go ahead real quick. And then I got one more question for you guys too. And then we can move on to making some picks.
now, just looking at the bracket, because you always look at like, man, how could have it changed, shaped up a little differently, like not just like adding different teams, but like just with the teams we have here, like with their numbers changing. I mean, you look at Georgia. I think Georgia has the easiest route, to a playoff or to a
Do you
championship.
think even if Notre Dame beats Indiana, or I think Indiana or Notre Dame, especially if Carson Beck's not healthy, I think either one of those teams can get Georgia, especially if Beck's not
Absolutely.
healthy.
Well,
Mhm.
I mean, I thought Georgia's backup did not play bad. I thought he
No,
wasn't
but
Carson Beck, but I thought he was good, and I
well,
think
I mean, he might have played better than Carson Beck, honestly. But like, do you really feel comfortable if you're Kirby Smart in Georgia going in with a backup quarterback that hasn't played, and all of a sudden his first start is going to be in the Sugar Bowl against a Notre Dame or an Indiana team that are clicking on all cylinders? I mean, I
Well,
wouldn't feel
well,
comfortable with that.
I would rather play Notre Dame or Indiana over SMU, Penn State, Clemson, Texas, Tennessee, Ohio. The only team I maybe at this
Ooh,
point would rather play is maybe a Texas. Like I'm not that like
Texas is broken. They got a good defense,
yeah.
but that offense, man,
Thumbs
I
up.
would be really shocked if we don't see Arch Manning a lot in that Clemson Texas game.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up whenever we talked about that game.
So I mean, I don't know, Dave.
All right, I guess
You want me to
who do
be
you think
honest
has the
with
harder
you?
route?
I
I
think
think
Penn
Oregon
State's
has
got
the
a
hardest
fan.
route.
Oregon does
Well,
have the
that's what I'm
hardest
saying.
route.
Georgia has the easiest route, is what I'm saying.
No,
Of the
I
top
think
four seeds, I would say Arizona State has the easiest route.
that's what I was going to say.
Well,
I think
uh,
Penn State also, if I'm going to be honest with you, I think they match up well with SMU. I think if Penn State handles business against SMU, I think they have the kind of defense to slow down Ashton Genty and Boise State. And I
yeah,
think you can see Penn State find their way into the Final Four. I think Penn State's got a fantastic draw. I don't think they're by any means upset. And they're hosting SMU. So good luck going into Happy Valley if you're SMU and matching up against that team right now.
Yeah, I thought all along, just when this whole 12-team format came out, that being the 5 and 6 seed is almost kind of where you want to be. Yeah, you'd have the bye, but you get a home game against a lower seeded opponent, and then if you win that game, you kind of get a brush up. You're not waiting for 3 weeks like these top four seeds are, and then you go into playing the next round against the lowest bye week teams. So I mean, 5 and 6 seed is a juicy spot to be, and it's apparent here. I mean, Texas and Penn State have some of the easier paths in this bracket, in my opinion.
Well, and we've talked too about how if you sit around and you get that first round bye, that you might lose some momentum. You might get a little stale. And I think a team like Arizona State is a team that could get got pretty easily in the first round of this playoffs because of that bye, because they just sit around a little bit. And they were a team that definitely rode the momentum, definitely rode the highs of the football team. They were all bought in. And I'm going to be honest, Texas or Clemson, either one, beats Arizona State in my opinion, and I would say comfortably.
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, they
I
look
don't know. I
good though,
think
man.
if Arizona State plays like they did yesterday, they could beat any team in this bracket, in my opinion.
Hey,
That's
Cam
not a question.
Scatabo, holy smokes.
Dude,
Listen,
Sam Levitt is legit.
listen.
Yes, does not turn the ball over.
I've seen a
No.
lot about
And
how
he's quick.
I've seen a lot about how Cam Scatabo is better than SGT. And let's just go ahead and knock that one out. Not even close. It's not even
No,
close.
that's not.
But Cam Scatabo,
He's a workhorse though.
does he have an extra year of eligibility? Because I think he's a senior.
I think he has another year. I could be wrong on that.
Because if he does, he might be the guy to get, and if you can get him on the portal, like if he hops into the portal,
if I'm him,
moving.
if I'm him and I'm draft eligible, I'm to the draft. You're gonna have no higher ceiling than what you have right now. I'm
yeah,
out
I
the
guess
door.
that's true. I guess that's true.
Peace out, Arizona State. Love what we did this year. It was fun. But I mean, he's a workhorse. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know if you guys watch Ashton Genty against UNLV. My God, you can't bring that guy down. There is not one person that can bring him down head on, like by themselves.
Well,
it's not gonna happen.
Even you know, I don't remember what the stat was, and y'all might have seen it. Basically, you know, how many rushing yards Ashton Genty has after the tackle?
Yeah, after contact. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Like it's like no one's even close. He's got more. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I think Scatabo and Genty are literally the same person. I mean, they besides their back. I mean, Genty has way better stats. I'm talking like how they play. I'm not saying Scatabo is better, but they literally are impossible to tackle. They, cut and jump through holes so easily, just like almost literally the same. They're literally almost the same person watching them run on the football field.
They are workhorses.
I mean, dude, I love that build on a running back. Like where you weren't the most gifted. You have just worked your ass off to just be that good.
Yep. And both of them did. That's why I respect both of them a ton too. To your point, Brian, like that, those two guys were overlooked, worked for everything they've got, and both of them have truly carried their teams, pun intended, to the college football playoffs. And the last question I want to ask before we start making our picks here: Are you guys shocked that Army wasn't even in discussion?
No,
they went 11-1 with their only loss to Notre Dame, who we have ranked as the 7th team in the playoff bracket. And they just beat the shit out of Tulane for their conference championship. I mean, beat the shit out of them.
Where did they finish up in the standings? Army was 24th.
See, I wasn't too shocked because, listen.
It's hard to pass Boise State, and they don't deserve it over any of the other teams. I'm just basically saying it's surprising to me that they weren't ever even muttered. Like, it wasn't even like, hey, maybe Army could be in contention for this G5 spot. I think what Boise State did was fantastic, and their only loss was to the 1-seed playoff team, Oregon, so you can't keep them out. I'm just literally just asking if we're shocked that they weren't ever even discussed.
I mean, yes and no. I think their strength of schedule being very subpar is part of that. I don't know.
So if you look at it, Indiana, they're in pretty much the exact same boat. Because Indiana lost to Ohio State, which is an 8 seed, in what the bracket is, and then Army lost their only game to Notre Dame, which is a 7 seed. So they lost to very similar teams. It's it's just like I think at that point it was just whose strength of schedule is better.
Do you think Indiana was a little nervous coming into today, knowing that Clemson won and that Bama was still on the brink and maybe SMU deserved it over them? Like, I was actually, I don't know.
I'd say they're slightly nervous, but the fact that they were 11-1, I get their strength of record is not the best, but they're 11-1 in Power 4. You're going to get in no matter who you are. If that was freaking Purdue and they're 11-1, it'd be the same thing.
Speaking of that, congratulations, Barry Odom.
I don't know if I would have taken that job, but that's another story.
Ooh, yeah, we got a lot of time to review some coaching moves and stuff like that. That'll be fun, too. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about that. But focusing solely on the playoffs. All right, fellas, we're going to go game by game here. We're all going to pick our Final Four, pick our national championship, and then we're going to get out of here, and we'll be back with you guys later in the week talking about some other bowl games. Hell, we may dive into some coaching moves at that point. I mean, we have a lot of time to talk about a lot of this, and we aren't taking time off. We don't take time off for college football. The off season is when things get really good and really interesting, and that's how we get to this point right now to talk about the playoffs and how these teams got here. So, first game, kicks off December 20th, 7 p.m. on ABC. It is 10 seed Indiana going to visit 7 seed Notre Dame. Reminder, both these teams are from the state of Indiana, so this is going to be a banger. And Notre Dame currently sits at -8. Bryant, Dave, you guys can tell me you can pick your team, and you can tell me if you're confident against the spread too, and then I'll pick mine. I'll let you guys do your thing. You just tell me how you want them. Notre Dame hosting Indiana. Who you got?
Hey, I'm thinking Curtis Rourke and the Hoosiers. Hey, I think they've got it figured out. I'm not too confident in Notre Dame, so see where this goes.
Right.
This one's tough for me, but I just think Notre Dame's been playing better as of late than Indiana. Yeah, they had that ugly loss in Northern Illinois, but they've been firing on all cylinders since then, getting healthy. Riley Leonard's looked better. Jeremiah Love is one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. If so, I think just the home factor and this being in South Bend, I'm going to roll with Notre Dame, but I doubt they cover.
7 p.m. at night, too. It's going to be a cold one in South Bend, boys. It's going to be a cold football game.
Yep.
What is the 20th? Is that it's a Friday night?
Friday night, yes.
Friday night. Okay, so we got a Friday night banger here. I've rode Indiana so hard all season. I've rode Curtis Rourke, Kurt Signetti all season long, and I love that football team. This was a really bad draw for them. This is a really bad matchup for them, in my opinion. They wanted to see, and man, I say this, but Indiana's defense has been okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to say Notre Dame wins because of home field, but I would, right now, as it sits, I would take Indiana +8, I think.
That's what I'm saying. I think Notre Dame wins, but don't cover.
Yeah. So we'll just stay on that section right there real quick. And so if Dave, if you have Indiana, they would be playing Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Me and Bryant have Notre Dame playing Georgia. So Dave, since you're the odd man out, make your pick. You got Georgia, Indiana. The question is Carson Beck playing Indiana, Georgia? We don't know the spread. Just pick your winner. Who you got? This is a neutral field, by the way. This isn't at Georgia.
Where is it at though? Where's the game?
The Sugar Bowl.
Look,
is the Sugar Bowl Atlanta?
Sugar Bowl's in New Orleans.
Sugar Bowl's in New Orleans.
So both teams have the same distance. So you kind of
No, that's a longer road for Indiana for sure. But yeah, they both got to travel.
But I'm going to take Georgia. I think Georgia's one of the best teams in the country. And that's why they're a number 2 seed. Like they've had losses, but I think they're the team that even after they had a loss, I always still believed them. Like I was like, hey, they messed up, but they're going to get it figured out. So I'm going to take Georgia because I think it's going to come down. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. I think it's going to come down to Georgia and Oregon at the once we get to that semifinal or to the final game. To the final game.
All right. So remember, you got Georgia in the Final Four when we circle back. Bryant, you and I have Notre Dame playing Georgia in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day at 7:45 p.m. I can go first since you went first the last time just to see if you're going to do anything different. I'm going to take Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame matches up very well in this Georgia football game. And I have been a Notre Dame hater all season. I've rode their ass about the NIU loss. I'm here to admit it. But I agree with everything you just said a second ago in the Indiana game. Jeremiah Love is one of the best in the business. Riley Leonard has looked really good. This defense is stout. And I think if Notre Dame can keep Riley Leonard upright in this football game, I think they can win this football game. So I am not impressed with anything Georgia does offensively, I'll be honest, at all. I don't think Carson Beck or Gunnar Stockton are very good. I don't think I'm dogging on Stockton. The dude got thrown into an SEC championship game out of nowhere, so credit to him for even making it work. But, with that being said, I don't think the receivers are worth a damn. I talked about Oscar Delp before the season started, how I thought he was a really good tight end. They finally started using him recently at the end of this season, and he is their best option on offense, in my opinion. So I think Notre Dame's defense could punch Georgia right in the mouth, and that is why I would lean Notre Dame over Georgia. Can't believe I'm saying that, but Notre Dame over Georgia in the Sugar Bowl.
I actually think the same thing. I think I would pick Notre Dame in that game too. I agree with everything you said with Georgia's offense not looking the best, especially yesterday. We don't know what's the injury with Carson Beck, but it doesn't look good, at least from what I could tell visually. And Gunnar Stockton, got thrown to the fire, but it's going to be tough for him to come in and play in a game like that especially with the team that has a game under their belt already, to kind of dust up the cobwebs after a few weeks of sitting and come into a quarterfinal game there in New Orleans. So, the only thing that scares me is the Marcus Freeman effect. He can
Yep.
tend to
Yep.
turtle up and forget how to coach a football game when it comes down to the wire. But I do think Notre Dame matches up very well with them on both sides of the ball. So I agree with you, Colin. I would give the nod to the Fighting Irish.
Without a doubt, you put Kirby Smart on the Irish and Freeman on Georgia. This is
Mm-hmm.
Kirby Smart and Notre Dame would kick the shit out of them. So, yeah, that's the only reason I would give Georgia a really good chance in that game is because of Kirby Smart and Marcus Freeman. But so
Yep.
with that being said, the first team that Bryant and I have in the Final Four, we're going to just work up the bracket, is Notre Dame. Dave has Georgia. Moving on, we have SMU going to Penn State on December 21st at 11 a.m. The spread is currently Penn State minus 8.5. Dave, SMU, Penn State, who you got?
Oh man, I just think Penn State. I think Penn State, their defense is just too good, and I think I truthfully it really bothers me that SMU ended up being the 3 seed because I don't want to play Penn State. Like I wanted Boise State to make a good run, like it would have been awesome because I wanted to see them make a run. I think they are a good program, and this might be the only year where they make the playoffs. Truthfully, who knows?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough from here. Yeah.
So I think Penn State. I don't think it's a big game. I think it's a 1 touchdown game. It's gonna be a slow
So
game.
you'll take Penn State to win it, but SMU to cover the 8.5.
Yeah.
Bryant, what are you going with?
I'm gonna roll with Penn State too, and I think they cover the 8.5. They looked very good against Oregon yesterday. Oregon is probably the best team in the country, and Penn State was toe to toe with them. SMU, yeah, they had a good comeback against Clemson, but they ultimately lost that game. And I think Clemson's probably the worst team in this bracket. Now, that being said, I think Kevin Jennings and that offense could score in this game. I think the only way SMU has a chance personally is that this game is a shootout. But I think Penn State's defense will prevent that, and I think they kind of win this one at home there in Happy Valley handedly.
Well, boys, so you're taking Penn State to cover too, 8.5.
I
Okay.
am, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go SMU here. I think SMU after this football game is pissed off. I don't think they want to feel that feeling that they just felt. I think that they were just very timid and scared and passive in the first half of that Clemson football game because they dominated after that, and that offense really ramped it up. I don't. Penn State's defense is very, very good. Very, very good. Don't get me wrong. But I think SMU can score on anybody. I think once SMU gets comfortable, I love Rhett Lashley, their coach, and I do truly think that SMU can outpace Penn State in this football game. Now, this being at Penn State makes it tough. This being at 11 a.m. is the only reason I'm picking SMU. If this was a 7 p.m. night game at Penn State, no chance I'm giving SMU this football game. But I think SMU can go in here. They can outpace them. I think SMU can get guys open. I think Rashard Smith, the running back, is an absolute monster. And I think there are times where Penn State's defense is on their heels. And just like you said a second ago, Bryant talked about Marcus Freeman, James Franklin, once again,
It's true.
cannot win the big ones. Once again, loses the big ones. And this is a real big one. This is a real big one. So I actually am going to take SMU Mustangs. And can't believe I'm saying that either. But I like him in this football game. And that brings us to the next game, which would be SMU. For me, I'll go first as I'm the odd man out. I would have SMU Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Eve at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN. And I'm going to tell you right here, right now, again, I'm taking SMU. I'm taking SMU to the Final Four. And I do think that they have shown me enough that they are a damn good football team. Like I said, they are a totally different team once they let the nerves go and just let it all hang out against Clemson. If they could run that game back right now, I'm taking SMU like minus 7.5. I think they come in with a different attitude. I think they come in here with a, kiss my ass. We were the last team that you guys were talking about to make it into this damn thing, and you almost left us out. So now I got nothing to lose and everything to prove. So I have SMU going to play in the Final Four game against Notre Dame. You guys would have Penn State, Boise State. Tell me what you're thinking.
I'm taking Penn State. Because to your point, how you talked earlier, Colin, Penn State can bottle up Ashton Jeanty. And listen, I'm not saying Ashton Jeanty doesn't have the skills and can't make it happen, but I think there's a higher chance of Penn State stopping Ashton Jeanty than Ashton Jeanty getting through Penn State. So then I guess, I would have Penn State, Georgia.
All right, Bryant, what you got?
Yeah, I agree with what Dave said. I think Penn State would win that game. Yeah, they have a common opponent in Georgia and Oregon. And Boise State played Oregon closer than Penn State did. But we now have 13 games of film on Jeanty. Yeah, he is probably the best running back. Well, he is the best running back in the nation. But I do think Penn State can bottle him up somehow. And I truly think Maddox Maxon won them that game on Friday night with how he played. I don't think it was all on Jeanty's shoulders because they were able to pass the ball around. So I think he does not do that in this game. And I think Penn State beats Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl down there in Arizona.
Love that. Perfect. I was just writing these down so we remember who we got in the Final Four so we can come back and revisit this. So, all right, we'll stay on this lower half of the bracket. So I would have Notre Dame, SMU in the Final Four in a matchup. You guys would have – oh, okay, we're all different. This is perfect. So I'll go first real quick since I'm just looking at it. I have Notre Dame, SMU. Notre Dame goes to the championship. This is not I'm not going to go that far and say SMU is going to the national championship. But Notre Dame wins that Final Four matchup. SMU, if they make it to this point, great season. Absolutely fantastic season. Notre Dame as well. When they lost to NIU, we all wrote them off on this network, and part of me still wants to write them off. But the way this thing shapes up for them, they run into an unhealthy Georgia football team if Beck's out, and Beck has looked awful anyways. I know we talked on this last episode how he looked good the last couple of games since Tate Ratledge came back, and he has. But, I mean, I was not impressed with anything Georgia had to offer earlier. So congratulations to Notre Dame if they make it to this point, and I have Notre Dame beating SMU to go to the college football playoff or finals. Sorry, Bryant, I have you down next. You would have Notre Dame, Penn State. If that happens, that would be a banger. Tell me what you're seeing there.
Yeah, I think that'd be a low-scoring, drag-out type game. But I do think Notre Dame is probably the better team. I do think they win that game. I do think it'd be very close. I just think, I don't know, that those teams are very evenly matched there. I'm just giving the nod to Notre Dame. Don't really have much analysis behind that because you could talk either side on the win into that game. So I'm going to roll with Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah. You could talk yourself into either one of those teams.
Yep.
Dave, you would have Georgia, Penn State.
At that point, it really comes down to if Carson Beck playing, because yes, he hasn't played great, but at the end of the day, he is a starter. He's the one that's got, he's got this offense has played with him for a while. So like to go in and go with sub, which he didn't play terrible.
I don't want to cut you up, but I'm going to tell you too like this. If you have Georgia beating Notre Dame, in my opinion, you're going with the mindset that Beck is playing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I would keep that mindset in this Georgia Penn State game.
Then I would take Georgia over Penn State.
Okay.
But
honest,
it's going to be a tight game. It won't be high scoring. It's going to be a tight game. Penn State is probably going to slow this ball down as much as they can, not let Georgia get any momentum, and just like make them grind for it, make them run the ball.
And I think Georgia would too. I don't think Georgia would try to get in a track meet. I mean, Penn State just proved like they could score some points if they absolutely have to. I mean, they just ramped it up against Oregon a little bit, and they went toe-to-toe. So, yeah, so that would mean that with two of us have Notre Dame and Dave has Georgia. Okay. Moving on to the top of the bracket. Dave, I'm going to lead off with you. We have on December 21st at 3 p.m., Clemson going to play Texas. Texas currently sits at -11. This game would be, like I said, December 21st, 3 p.m. on TNT. Dave, Clemson, Texas, what are you doing here?
I'm taking Clemson. And I never thought I'd be taking Clemson in the playoffs. I never thought Clemson would be in the playoffs, to be completely honest with you. But I just think there's not a whole lot going on in that Texas offense. Texas they are a good team, but I think when it comes down to it, I think Clemson is maybe a little bit better rounded in regards to like their health and like where their team is at. I think if they were both healthy teams and they were, as good as they were supposed to be, I think Texas would win this game at any other time. But I think Clemson and Dabo Swinney are going to find a way to pull this one off. Cade Klubnik's probably going to turn it on. This is what's going to happen. And Texas is just going to, again, to your point, Quinn Ewers is just not the guy. I think this is going to be a game where, Quinn Ewers is not figuring it out. They throw in Arch Manning, and either Arch Manning is going to be, he's either going to hit hard or he's going to bust. This is going to be that game that really defines him as a person. For his sake, I hope this is the game where he takes over and just makes Texas his program. Quinn Ewers transfers out, like we talked in our last episode about him possibly out.
That looks more likely, and so does the Jalen Milroe thing, by the way, nowadays. But Bryant, Clemson, Texas minus 11. Give it to me.
First off, I have Texas winning, but I don't think they win by 11 points. You look back to the last game of the season that Clemson played in South Carolina. I think Texas's defense and South Carolina's defense are very similar. Defensive line heavy, very good play on the defensive line, and South Carolina beat them. Now, I do think Texas probably has a slightly better offense than South Carolina. I personally think we see a lot more Arch Manning in this game.
Yep.
I could honestly see him waltzing out and starting this game. Personally, I don't know, but they just seem to play a little better when he's on the field, even though it seems to be Nick Nagy situations where they kind of are either going to run the ball or try to sneak it or something. But Quinn Ewers hasn't played that well down the stretch. But this game being down there in Austin, Clemson kind of sneaking in with a last-minute bid there with the win over SMU. I know Dabo's been in this situation before. He knows how to win, but I think Texas is gonna beat Clemson at home in this one.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go with Texas, and I'm going to add not really any analysis here. I totally agree with you. Texas's defense, to me, can shut Clemson down. I've dogged on Cade Klubnik in big football games, and I think that congratulations, he played a good one against SMU, if you want to call it that. But I think that this moment is too big for him. And going into Texas, there's no way. So I'm going to take Texas as well. I do agree, though, I don't think they cover. So I would take Clemson in the points, and I would take Texas to win outright. So, Dave, once again, you are the odd man out. You would have Clemson playing Arizona State in the Peach Bowl presented by Chick-fil-A on New Year's Day, 12 p.m. on ESPN. Clemson, Arizona State, who you got going to the Final Four?
Oh. I this is one of those where I'm kind of stuck. Like I want to say Clemson just goes ahead and makes it to the Final Four. Unless
all that Dabo Swinney shit talk you've done all season on this network about him in the transfer portal, and you're gonna tell me right now you're gonna waltz him into the Final Four.
I'm not waltzing them in. I just think that's just their draw. Like they have a pretty decent draw. Like even for being a 12 seed, especially, like they didn't fare out too bad. That's kind of the two teams you want to play. And
Clemson your pick?
Huh?
Is Clemson your pick?
Yeah, I'd take Clemson.
Man, I love it. Bryant, make some sense of this. You would have Texas, Arizona State, and so would I. To your point real quick, Dave, I have SMU in the Final Four. So, like, this college football season has been nuts every single weekend. So, I am not really balking at anybody's picks. This is one time where I truly look at this thing and I'm like, holy shit, anything could actually happen because this season has been total ape shit. So, Bryant, what are you thinking?
Personally, I think Arizona State wins this game against Texas. I thought Arizona State looked the best out of any team that played yesterday, and they didn't even have their best receiver on the field. Scatterbo is unreal. Sam Levitt was dynamic both with his legs and passing the ball. I can't remember the receiver, the other receiver of Arizona State. I want to say the last name begins with a G.
Wasn't it like Delgado or Guerrero?
Something
Dude, that
like
dude
that.
wasn't. That dude was an absolute. Gilderoy. Xavier Gilderoy.
That's right.
He's the one that made that play over the cornerback in front of him, brought the ball down from like his shins and brought incredible catch.
If they get Tyson back, which I believe he could get back with, I don't know what his collarbone injury is, but I think Arizona State matches up well with Texas. I think they can score with anybody. They're playing hot down the stretch and into the season now. They do have this layover for damn near a month. That might hinder things a little bit, but their defense is good too. I mean, they totally stuffed that game yesterday against Iowa State. Iowa State couldn't do anything on offense. So
Nothing.
I'm gonna roll with Arizona State. I do think Texas is probably the best defense they'll see if that game does happen, but
For sure.
I think their offense is better than Texas is as it sits right now.
What if I told you, it sounds like a 30 for 30 already. What if I told you that I'm taking Arizona State as well because I think they have the better quarterback in this football game. I think they have the better running back in this game. And I think if Tyson's playing, they have the best receiver in this football game. It's Arizona State for me too.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I'm very shocked I'm saying that out of my mouth as well. But I think a Texas team right now who hasn't, if you really look back at what they've done this season, they're not that impressive. They're really not. The schedule favored them. They played an A&M team where they tried to give this game away. Texas tried to hand A&M the win, but Marcel Reed was so bad they couldn't go win it. And yeah, man, Arizona State for me as well. And I
Texas does
totally
not
agree
have.
with you.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I totally agree with you. They played better than anybody on conference weekend. Conference
Yep. And
championship
Texas
weekend.
does not have a win against any team that is ranked on the final college football standings.
Nope. Their best win would legit be Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
And they just lost to Georgia's backup quarterback. So take that for how you will. So with that being said, as it sits right now, we have one more set of games to do. But I have Notre Dame, SMU, Arizona State, 3 out of my 4. Bryant has Notre Dame, Penn State, Arizona State. Dave has Georgia, Penn State, Clemson. All right, fellas, down to the final stretch of games here. We have Tennessee traveling to Columbus to play at Ohio State on December 21st, 7 p.m. on ABC or ESPN. Take your pick. Ohio State -7. Bryant, you go first this time.
This is a tough one to pick for me. I think it kind of depends which offense shows up for Tennessee. I think we know what we're going to get from Ohio State. They're going to run the football. They're not going to pass a whole lot, but if they do, it's going to be to Ibuka or Jeremiah Smith. On the flip side, if Nico can play well in this game, they can get Dalvin Sampson going. I feel like both these defenses match up very well with the opposing offenses. Tough game to pick. I'm just going to roll with previous. I'm just going to roll with previous experience in these games. No, screw it. I'm going to go Tennessee. Ryan Day sucks.
Hey,
Ryan Day sucks, man.
I was going to come across that screen and choke you. You chose Ohio State.
I'm going Tennessee.
Hey, not to jump ahead, but
is Tennessee a clean sweep for us? Are we all 3 taking Tennessee?
Yeah, for sure. By a long
Tennessee
shot.
for me.
And this total is 47.5. I think Tennessee can make this.
I think this is the perfect matchup for Tennessee. Like Tennessee, this is the game you want because Ohio State's not running the ball real great. And
I'll tell you this:
that Tennessee defense can bottle up.
Yes, they can.
That Tennessee can bottle them up. I mean, Tennessee has shown it all year. I mean, they shut down Jalen Milroe, and we think Jalen Milroe is really good. So they've shut him down. Then, not to mention, Tennessee can run the ball like very well.
They're gonna keep
averaging
Will
over
Howard.
200 yards against ranked opponents this season. Ranked opponents, not just everybody.
Which is crazy. But I think that, to your point, that Tennessee defense keeps Will Howard very uncomfortable, and Ryan Day is going to be shitting down both legs. And Ryan Day gets fired after this football game because he loses the first playoff game at home after they lost to Michigan to put themselves in this situation. I'm going all hot takes here. Ryan Day is going to coach his last game for Ohio State December 21st when Tennessee comes to town and kicks their ass in Columbus. So all 3 of us take Tennessee. I'm serious though. If Tennessee does beat them, Ryan Day will be fired.
I think whichever quarterback plays better in this game is going to win. That team's going to win. I think Tennessee's going to force Will Howard to beat them, and I think Ohio State's going to force Nico to beat them. And I think Nico is more dynamic than Will Howard, especially on the ground. Nico might have 60 yards rushing in this game. So yeah, Tennessee, I think better quarterback overall wins it out for him in this game. But
Tennessee better quarterback.
Absolutely.
Tennessee better quarterback. Tennessee the best running back. Ohio State has the better duo, but Tennessee has the best running back in this football game and also has the better coach by a mile. So give us all 3 Tennessee. That would give us all It's the first time we've all three had the same pick. This would give us Tennessee playing Oregon in the Rose Bowl out on the West Coast on January 1st, 4:00 p.m. on ESPN. Tennessee, Oregon. Bryant, Dave, I'll take it and go first this time since I haven't gone first much. I said it before the season started. I said it on our first episode. I think Oregon wins the national championship. I'm not sure if I'm still going to do that as it sits right now, but I am taking Oregon to beat Tennessee. Oregon still, to me, is through and through the best football team in the country. Give me Oregon over Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm going to ride right with you. I think Oregon wins this game. Even though they let up a lot of points to Penn State yesterday, their offense was so dynamic with Dylan Gabriel. Tez Johnson played phenomenal. They got two really good running backs in Jordan James and Whittington. So I just think they're rolling in all cylinders out there in Eugene. And I think they win this game. Going to be a lot of Oregon fans down there in Pasadena.
Yes, there will be. And they won this football game without Evan Stewart even having a catch.
I know.
Crazy.
And they had
That's
multiple
crazy.
turnovers on defense.
Yeah.
So damn near a pick six.
And Penn State and Tennessee's defenses are very similar, and Oregon just proved that they can beat it. So also why I lean Oregon. Dave, is this a clean sweep for all of us?
Yeah, for sure. It's not close.
He said, yeah, for sure. Oregon. Well,
Not close.
I'll tell you what then. We're just going to save it. We're going to go right to the Final Four and talk about those then. Dave, you got Oregon Clemson. Who you going?
Oregon for sure. Oregon for
You
sure.
like Dabo in that game?
No.
Bryant, you have Oregon Arizona State. Who you going?
I think this is where the Arizona State train ends. I think it would be actually a very good matchup. Two highly athletic offenses that can score the ball, but I don't know where that game will be played. But I'm going to go with Oregon.
I'm Oregon as well. Clean sweep. Hardest draw for Oregon, and they still prove their way. Dan Lanning's the best coach in this bracket, in my opinion. And that's also taking Kirby Smart into consideration. I love me some Dan Lanning right now.
So that would either be the Cotton Bowl or what's the other one they haven't played? So Fiesta, Peach, Rose, and Sugar. What's the fourth one? Orange Bowl.
Cotton and the Orange.
It's
That
either
would
Cotton
be.
or Orange. I think this is the Cotton Bowl.
And that's in Texas, correct?
That's in Texas, yes.
And the Orange Bowl's in Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would then bring me down to Notre Dame, SMU, Bryant to Notre Dame, Penn State, and Dave to Georgia, Penn State. Dave, Georgia, Penn State, pick them.
Georgia.
Wow. Okay. So you're going to have a Georgia, Oregon 1-2 seed national.
Gunnar Stockton to the final.
Gunnar Stockton to the moon. Talk about getting in the portal. Brian.
Hey.
Go ahead, Dave. What you got?
So my thing is, I think Carson Beck's going to be – if he doesn't play – oh, well, they have a bye, so I think Carson Beck should be fine by then. You know, from what I saw –
it doesn't look good.
Well, from what I saw, it's a forearm injury. Like, listen, with
his shoulder.
What was that?
It's shoulder injury.
I think it could be at the rate he was trying to throw the football and at the rate he was hit with it. I think it could be anywhere from elbow up.
Well, I read earlier. So this was 6 hours ago, so it could have.
You are in the medical field, so you probably know more than me.
Well, touche.
Hey, I was doing research. They don't even come out none of that. But no, it looks like
I know what I'm reading when I read that stuff.
Like he took a hit to like the elbow, wrist area, but the pain was in the elbow. So
that's even worse, brother.
Yeah, being a quarterback. You know, truthfully, I didn't need, I don't know. But I think, unless it's completely torn, he can still go sling the rock. Now, how good is he going to be injured? Hey.
He ain't good healthy.
Maybe he's better injured. Maybe he's better injured.
Maybe he did hand the ball off in that final touchdown. That was props to him.
There it is.
Hey, this is his flu game.
Bryant, Notre Dame, Penn State. Who are you taking?
As much as it pains me to say this, I think Notre Dame wins the game.
Okay.
We've been dogging them, and I just don't like Notre Dame in general. But I think they are probably a better team than Penn State in this game. Be very close. I think that'd be a drag out again, like we talk about with a lot of these games on that side of the bracket.
Yeah,
I just think the James Franklin effect's going to come into effect at some point. I see it being that game.
That's why I didn't even have him getting there. I agree with you. And I wanted you, to be honest, I wanted you to take Penn State only because I want us to be a little bit different. And that forces my hand to take an SMU. And I'm going to do it, man. Piss on it. Why not? SMU is Jesus. SMU to the national championship against Oregon. And
Oh shit.
dude, yeah, no shit. I mean, is it likely? No. Is it a Cinderella story? Yes. I th- I'm confident they can beat Penn State, and I think if they can beat Penn State, I think they match up against everybody else just as well. So I looking at it now, next to Oregon, and well, I guess the way Arizona State just played, I would have SMU having the best offense in this bracket. Because I mean, I should be Ohio State's, but Ryan Day's a dipshit and doesn't let Chip Kelly just let him sling the rock around 50 times a game to their receivers because they had the best receiving core in this bracket. But man, I I'm trying to sell myself right now as well on SMU if you can't tell. But
Mhm.
SMU can outpace Notre Dame. I think that would actually be a high scoring football game. I do think Notre Dame on paper, yeah, obviously I think you look at that game and you're like, yeah, they're going to beat SMU. But that's when Notre Dame doesn't do good things. That's when Marcus Freeman doesn't do good things. That's when he overthinks it. That's when he goes for it on the fourth down instead of kicking a field goal and taking some points. That's when, Riley Leonard throws an interception and they fake it on the fourth down on a punt. So give me SMU. Let it all hang out. Let the nuts hang, baby. They got nothing to lose. And give me the Stangs. And I would love to see an Oregon SMU national championship. I think that'd be a fun football game to watch. So
Mhm.
that's what I have right now. Oregon SMU.
Yeah.
And
After the Carson Beck injury, I just think if he does not playing for Georgia, I just think Notre Dame's probably the better team on that side of the bracket as it sits right now.
without a doubt, without a doubt. And I'll be honest.
If
If you
Beck
didn't,
was
if you took
healthy,
Penn
I'm
State,
picking Georgia all the way.
let me preface that too. If Beck is healthy and Kirby Smart has his quarterback and they can plan ahead, I'm taking Georgia. Definitely would take Georgia over SMU if they matched up in the Final Four. So I agree with you. I'm going on. Dave's going on the limb that Beck's playing. Bryant and I are going on the limb that Beck's not playing. Well, if we get news, hey, we may do this again just for fun on that lower half. But Dave, you have Oregon, Georgia. Time to pick one. All three of us have Oregon, so time to pick one.
Oregon.
Dave's national champion is Oregon. Bryant, you have Oregon, Notre Dame. Pick one.
Oregon Ducks.
I have Oregon, SMU, and I'm here to tell you I'm not going different this time. SMU is not winning the national
Oh,
championship
I
their
was gonna
first year in
say.
I was gonna say
the
no way.
Give me the Oregon Ducks as well. We've called it on this network all season long. No need to venture away from that now. Oregon Ducks for all three of us. This would be cool though. We all three do have different opponents for Oregon. So when we all make a case for how our teams got there, Oregon Ducks national champions. And I do feel like it's a safe bet. I really
Mhm.
do. The only thing that scares me is if Ohio State beats Tennessee. It's hard to beat a team twice, so maybe Ohio State could get them. But I think Dan Lanning's over the hump. I think big things are happening for Oregon. We could have said the same thing last year about Dan Lanning. Hey, you can't win the big one. Lost to Washington twice.
Mhm.
He's proven that he's over that right now after going and winning the Big Ten their first year there. I'm all in on the Oregon Ducks. I'm all in on Dan Lanning. I'm all in on this offense. I'm all in on this defense. I'm with you guys. Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, I think Oregon is the most complete team on both sides of the football in this bracket, defensively and offensively. So I think that's why we're everybody here on this network's got them picked to win it all. So we'll see how it goes when
Absolutely.
they snap the football.
Absolutely. This 12-team playoff is awesome. I do think they are probably going to look to expand pretty quick. I don't think they like how some of this shook out. So I could see them definitely trying to expand here before too much longer and hell, maybe even next year. So right now, though, we're going to enjoy it. First year with the CFP having 12 teams. First year of Deep Threat Sports Network covering this sport. This season was a blast. We are not done yet. College football is not done yet. But Bryant, Dave, you guys got anything else you want to add real quick?
No.
Nope.
Oregon all the
Um,
way, baby.
Excited to talk next week about some of these bowls. There's some intriguing matchups, I think, on games that are not involved with the playoff. Transfer portal opens up tomorrow morning. So next week's going to be hectic too. There'll be plenty to talk about besides these games we're talking about in the CFP.
Absolutely. And I cannot wait to, like I said many a times, I love covering that stuff as much as anything. That to me is how we get to this moment and how these teams find their way into the playoffs. So, like Bryant said, Not real sure what our schedule is going to be upcoming. Us three will talk in a group. Probably put it out on our socials when we're going to have our next episode. Could be Thursday, could be Friday, could be Sunday, Monday. Who knows? We're going to try to get at you as big news breaks. We'll put all the big news out on our socials as well. If a massive portal entry happens, we'll probably try to drop it. If a massive portal piece falls to a team, we'll try to drop it. Make sure you're following us on X at DT_sports_. Facebook, Deep Threat Sports Network. Instagram, Deep Threat Sports with a Z. TikTok, Deep Threat Sports Network. Spotify, Deep Threat Sports. YouTube, Deep Threat Sports. Dave, Bryant, until next time, fellas. Peace.